humid today. Hello, everybody. Let's try that again. Hey, everybody, I am Tommy, and you are on The Love Boat. I'm getting better at this YouTube thing. Well, I'm not. Sandy Wandy, good to see you. Hey, Cindy G. Jane Aldrich, how are you? I see KM, Krista Melinda, good to have you here. Katie Purry very easily could knock down all of the recording equipment today. If that happens, there wasn't an earthquake. It was a furry white earthquake. That cat today is like, I don't know. She had LSD for breakfast. Caroline, good to see you. Hello, Maria. I'm not joking. This cat is on one. It is absolutely amazing to watch her. What the deuce? And poor squirrel is just sitting on this table over here looking at her run back and forth like, what did you guys do? We had such a cool, kind little house. It was Lisa Trimble. How are you? Hey, no one. Scooby Lee, like a drunk furry freshman in college. Arabian Bard, look at this. You made one. I saw a comment after the last boat last night. You said, I keep missing these. Puka Vista says, my cats were all Zooming this morning too. What did they call it instead of Zoomies?
Frenetic random activity period.
Frenetic random activity period. Frack. Fracking.
No, it would be frack.
Yeah, well, I prefer fracking. Frap, apparently, is what you call it. I'm going to stick with Zoomies. It makes a lot more sense to me. They look like it's a Zoomie thing. So I love these morning boats. Hey, Lee, I'm glad you're here. I really do. I dig these morning boats. To me, this is so much, well, it's more important, isn't it? I'm sorry, it just is. You know, we're not gonna fix the politics of the day. It's fun to talk about it, and it's important to talk about it because it makes people think, wow, do you see the curtains? And it makes people think, and currently I think that's a good thing. Zoomies in Spanish. Cindy G, I'm going to work on that. You have my word. And it's going to be easy because one of my translators down here, somebody that I call every time I'm really confused, has a either a master's or a PhD in language studies, particularly Espanol in all of its forms. Barbara, wait, did I say hello? If not, I'll do it again. So I might want to ask her. She also happens to be a cat lover. So it could be very logical that I can say, hey, what do you call it in Spanish when your cat acts like a absolute moron for 5 or 10 minutes at a time? We also refer to her as the parkour kitty. And I don't know if you've ever seen parkour, but that's where guys like jump off of a balcony and they sort of do a tuck and roll and then they run and they'll like, you know, use a tree to bank off of. And that's what his cat does. This morning, she ran at the glass sliding doors that go out onto the balcony as if there was no glass there. And she jumped and hit the glass, turned around and shot back in the opposite direction. But at first I thought, well, there you go.
He's got the crazies.
How do you say it? Anyway, you got the crazies, apparently is how you would say it in Espanol. Johnny's doing a lot better. He really is. And the proof of that is that this morning, pretty sure it isn't her name either. That's awesome. You helped to help you learn. You know what really helps us learn is we're watching movies. Hey, Dennis from Boston, I didn't get to thank you. You left a super chat at the very end of a live feed, and it popped up after I had hit end, and I hated it. There was nowhere to say thank you. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you, my friend, for all the support. Caroline, yeah, you saw short, and Johnny was feeling old. Well, I'm making him feel old, right? That's kind of a lot of it too. Is that we really are on this nothing that isn't pure diet, right? And we really have a ton of toxins and things in our bodies. And you know, it's one of those things you hear people talk about, but when you start to sweat them out, radiation sickness, you know, it feels like, or dope sick. It feels like kicking dope again. It's awful. But this morning, both of us were wide awake at 4:30 a.m. and that's a rarity lately. Normally 4:30 is like we sit up and we're ready to attack the world. And for the last probably close to a week, we've been sleeping till like 5:15, you know, and that may sound like we're sleeping, you know, like it's still getting up really, really early, but be nice to your elders, Tommy. I hope he heard that. Hello, DNV. Yeah, I really hope that he heard that. That's great. He did, though. I heard a wow from the other room. But if you watched Johnny last night, you probably saw a picture of me laying on the ground in absolute agony. And then he proceeded to tell everyone how bad he felt about it. people that are feeling bad don't grab a camera to document it. Just saying. Just saying. 4 a.m. Good grief. You know what? Some of that. Breaking news, Tommy Scoville guilty of elder abuse. Oh, they'll run with that. They will run with that. That's funny as heck, Barbara Wade. That's great. Let's put that up there. We'll let him make a thumbnail out of it. Chase the heat in South America. Yep. So, you know, what's fun is that when I do these journaling shows, I don't have to do preparation for this like I would the stuff that I do at night. I have spent so much time in this process of journaling and so much time trying to make it make sense to me that when I talk about journaling, it's like Johnny Scoville talking about peppers, right? Or talking about enduring really hot pains. Yoga is coming up. That's right. Be nice. Can't tag anyone this morning. Exhausted at the moment. You know what, Lisa Trimble? I think that you will be forgiven for that. And then you just look at that. We'll get it for everybody. Lisa Trimble just said hi to the other 33 of you currently in the room. How's that, Lisa? We'll make that easier for you. So I don't have to get prepared for these shows in the same way that I have to get prepared for other shows. Now, I would like to kind of keep a sort of a cohesive narrative as we go through. I don't want to jump to things that are more advanced in the process and leave people sort of wondering what the hell is going on. But it's nice to be able to just sort of roll and feel good about it without having to do a ton of preparation. And it's also good because I journal constantly and things are coming up that I don't share with everybody. There's a lot these days that I don't share with everyone. Archie's mom, good to see you. I used to share everything in my life. And I found that that's an error and that there are things that you have to hold back. But if something happens in my life, Ron Howard, the filmmaker, apparently has said that every film he ever made started with a photo. He saw a photo, and that photo made his mind go to all of the things that were eventually going to become that it was going to, you know, from there was going to translate into an entire movie. I find that fascinating. Handmade Hazard. You know what, DNB, don't hate me for this, but it seems like a perfect time. They're having a field day with the fact that Reese is a mod. I assume you mean over on the channel that hates me. And there's a part of me that just wants to say, why are you watching it? I'm not trying to be a jerk, but it's poison in and it's poison out. You know, it really is. And I think that when you walk away from something like what I'm doing this morning, you have a much different feeling than when you walk away from a channel that's literally pumping hate, where everything that gets put on is designed to be hateful. I don't know that that's healthy to watch. You can watch whatever you want. Right? I don't go over into other people's chats to see who's hanging out or doing any of those things. I'm not that guy. I don't watch anything that people make about me. But I'd be concerned about watching stuff that in my life it's happened to me, right? I have said stuff like, I'm not participating in any hate. I will not watch anything that anybody makes about me. But then I'll go watch somebody that's hating on a different person. But for me, and this is a me thing, but for me, it damages me. I'm not the same person because garbage in, garbage out. It tends to put me into a mindset that isn't fantastic. So this morning, kind of like the picture with Ron Howard, right? Last night, I really don't watch things that people make about me. It's almost to the point of religion, right? I did it on the 4th day of December, the first year I had the lifeboat. I made a New Year's resolution that I would never watch anything made about me ever again. That's it. And I have been able to stick with that, I mean, across the board. Now, every once in a while, somebody sneaks something in by sending me an email that I don't know what it is. And when I pop it up, I'm there. I don't watch it, but it's enough to show me what the thumbnail was about or anything else. But I don't allow stuff to get into me that way. But last night, someone was able to get in, so to speak. And it wasn't, the crazy thing is, it wasn't somebody that was trying to be cruel at all. It was somebody but sometimes people say things and they don't think it completely through before they say it. And you end up saying something that hurts the person that you're talking to. You end up saying something that literally hurts somebody's feelings, right? And we wear these costumes. We hide. And we hide in different ways. Lumen, good to see you. And one of the ways that we hide is we put costumes on. And one of the costumes that I started putting on at a really young age was that nothing was ever going to hurt me. You know, whatever I had to do to make it so that no one was going to hurt me again. And you begin to play a role. And it's like playing a role in a film. When I was a young boy, you know, just about to turn 18 years of age. In fact, I may have filmed the second scene when I was 18. I can't remember exactly because we filmed at different times. But I was in a movie, a major motion picture, a film with Chevy Chase called Funny Farm. And I remember going to the first day of filming, and it was directed by a very famous director. He's got a star on the Walk of Fame. He did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He did The Sting. He did a lot of really fantastic movies. And then he did Funny Farm, which unfortunately he didn't hit out of the park quite the same way he did some of the other ones. But it was a funny film, and I got to meet Chevy Chase, and my dad got to come out and watch the filming. It was a very, very good time, right? And I got there, and I'm a 17-year-old kid, and I'm playing a 17-year-old kid. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of costuming or a whole lot of makeup that had to take place. But the other boy that played the second teenager, I believe is what his title was, right? It was first teenager and second teenager. The second teenager looked more like a teenager. So in the makeup chair, they were discussing how to make me look a little bit younger. And it was a fascinating thing, right? It really was. It was a fascinating thing. But it gets you thinking, right? How we do the same thing in life, right? There's a makeup chair in your world. I promise there is. And you put a face forward that you want the world to see. And you put on the outfit, right, that you want to show to the world. You don't put on who you are. You don't usually show that to the entire world. And one of the reasons that we do this, Tommy Bird, good to see you. One of the reasons that we do that is we don't want our teeth kicked in. And we train ourselves, whether you realize it or not, we train ourselves throughout our life to protect the organism. You're going to protect yourself. You're going to protect from physical pain. You're going to protect yourself from emotional pain and spiritual pain and all of those things. And the best way, if you had a kid and you could teach your child growing up that when somebody hurts your feelings, if you were to say at the time and stop them in the mid-speech and say, you know what, that really hurt my feelings, how much better a world would we be in? But I don't know about the outfit you put on, right? It's very uniquely you. But I know about the outfit that I put on. And to say to somebody, hey, you really hurt my feelings, doesn't match the outfit, the costume that I've been wearing since 1981, right? That's the costume that I have put on and wore my entire life. So I'm not liable, or I'm not likely to say, hey, pardon me, you just hurt my feelings. What happens, right? Smart group, and we've been talking a lot about this. What happens if I don't say, hey, you just hurt my feelings? Well, I shove it in the closet. I shove it in the closet, and then I shove the door closed as hard as I can. Angela Brown, good afternoon from Scotland. I love it. I really do. I love the fact that we can all hang out from different parts of the world and talk about this stuff. It's so cool. It really is one of the coolest things ever. Reimagining social media and what it can do to leave the earth a better place than you found it. That was kind of the idea of this channel, but I love that. Glad you're here, Angela. So knowing that whether you consciously, unconsciously, subconsciously, whatever you want to call it, whether you're aware of it or not aware of it, we're absolutely protecting ourselves. And we're going to do it. It's the default setting. We do it. All of us do it, whether you are aware of it or not. So if you keep that in the back of your head, if you keep in the back of your mind that, you know what, I put on armor of sorts to protect myself from the world. Knowing that, it makes you more aware of things that you shove in the closet and why you shove it in the closet. So last night I got my feelings hurt, and I didn't say to the person, hey, you hurt my feelings. I wish I did. I wish I was, I got a long way to go, right? And someday maybe I'm going to be comfortable enough to say that in the moment. I started listening to soothing sounds on Alexa in the afternoon. It really has been relaxing, me not having any pain attacks for 2 weeks. How good is that? Really works for me anyway. And I started journaling. I love this. I love this. I really do. Journaling is massive. So last night, after I didn't say, hey, you hurt my feelings, I realized the second that it was over that a golden opportunity in my life had just gone past. You know what? Can everybody in the chat put any kind of celebration stuff that you've got? Trophies, balloons. I don't have the beautiful participation trophy that was gifted to me that I hold up. It's in shipping, which means, you know, could be a couple of months. I mean, even a FedEx overnight stuff takes a few weeks. This is a big box with stuff in it. So if we could put up any kind of celebration stuff, because 8 years sober is epic. Dennis, you know what? 8 is such a low number, right? On our 1 through 99 thing, that it's too easy to go 8 years. That's great. 8 years. That's 8 times 365 days. That's every time you wanted to say, I can't do this today. It would be just so much easier to have a drink. It's how many times somebody hurt your feelings. It's how many times that you did something that you wish you hadn't done and you felt a little guilty about it. It's so many victories, right? 8 years of sobriety is 1,000 mini victories, 5,000 mini victories. Who knows? But it's a hell of a long time. I know that because I once got a sentence that was almost exactly 8 years. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of days in 8 years. I promise there's a whole lot of days in 8 years. Dennis, I'm so proud of you, man. I really am. And I'm getting better at saying this. 2,920 days, says Johnny Scoville. Handmade Hazard, good to see you. I'm glad you said that, because that's 2,920 days. I promise you, in that first couple of years, you're overcoming that daily. You're still doing it at year 10. I'm in a decade, and I'm still overcoming things every single day that wanted to send me smoking right back to my substance of choice, right? So, Dennis, that is awesome. That is amazing, and couldn't be more proud of you. I really couldn't. So, I didn't deal with it on the fly last night. I didn't say, hey, you hurt my feelings. I didn't deal with it in real time, right? As we talk about, I give the illustration of watching that car go by, and then a decade later, 15 years later, seeing a car very similar with a blonde girl and a guy in it, and I was right back to where I was all those years ago. If you don't deal with something as if it's a streaming service, then you have a VCR. And what you do is you record what happened. And if you don't deal with that, then it's going to affect you. It might be the next day. It might be 5 years from now, but that's something that goes into that closet and it pops through the door at the most inconvenient of times. Maria, how are you? That's the danger. Do you understand? Barbara Aldrich, I don't know if I said hello to you. Good morning. That's the danger of not dealing with things in real time. So, perfect life example from my life. So this was right around midnight. You know, I get done with my show kind of late where I live. So this was close to midnight last night. And I usually do a very short journaling session at midnight, right? If I'm up at that hour, I'm doing a very, very short journaling session, because all I'm really doing is getting the day in order. And as I said, I haven't been putting anything in the closet. I have been dealing with things in real time. This is the first time in probably a month, maybe even a little longer than that, that I shoved something into the closet. Now, it was only in there for about 30 minutes, but it's the journal's incredible and it's so effective. And there are times you're not going to be able to say to the person that did that, hey, you hurt my feelings, right? It's just not something that could happen. It might be a boss. It might be something where you're not going to be able to ever say that. Or you really need to say something to somebody, that you're working through something from your past, and the person that you need to work on is dead. The person you need to fix something with is no longer with us, or they're with us, but there's no chance. There's nothing that you can do to ever go back to that person. You know, there are some bridges that aren't ever going to be rebuilt. It's just how it goes. And I've said to, I'm not joking, 1,000 people, write a letter to your deceased loved one. If there's something that you have to work through, then you have to work through it. So if you feel the need to apologize to a parent that's no longer here, then you need to apologize to a parent that's no longer here. There's nothing else that's going to substitute for that. There isn't. I promise. And likewise, if you need to yell at a parent that's no longer here, or that you don't have the capacity or the ability to go to and do that, you're not going to get through that hurdle any other way. So write a letter, and people say, you know what, you write a letter and you burn it. There's some symbolism in that. And if that's going to help you, fantastic. I tend to not throw those letters out. And the reason I don't is there's an excellent chance I'm going to feel the need to write it again. And sometimes taking that letter back out and reading what I wrote the first time makes the next letter considerably more effective. Because if I wrote that letter and it didn't do the trick, there's a reason it didn't. I didn't do something I should have. And maybe I wasn't mean enough. I'm being dead serious. Maybe, I mean, if it was a loved one, I had a great relationship with my dad, but let's say I didn't. And I wrote a letter to him. Oh, you know what? Let's just be more honest. I write apology letters to my dad all the time. When something comes up and I realize that when we went through all of the stuff that we went through, I didn't fix this. This was something that was an omission. And not usually because I decided, Jenny, good to see you. You're in Greece. Look at this, man. We are good, and we are nation or international, I should say. It's a takeoff of a song by who sings Bad and Nationwide? ZZ Top. ZZ Top. I got that before you did, just for the record.
Nah.
Yes, I did. But if you have to write, if I have to apologize again, if I write that apology letter to my dad and I tuck it away, and then I feel 3 months later something comes up and I feel like I have the need to apologize again, it's probably because I didn't get it done right the first time. Or maybe it's just that it's going to take 20 tries. But going back and rereading that letter for me is an effective thing. I know people that have taken letters to graves and ripped them up there or burned them there. Anything that you can do that is cathartic and is going to heal you, I promise it'll make sense. You really will. Now you have to be able to write that letter, right? That's something that you have to do, because shoving it in the closet isn't going to work. And that's what I did last night. So within 30 minutes of putting that thing in the closet, I got out my journal and I started to write. And it didn't end up being that short little journal session where all I do is talk about the things that happened during the day and I get it in some kind of an order so that when I go to sleep, the night shift can deal with all of the subconscious stuff that I need to work through. And if you've never heard me talk about this, there's so much power in that. We believed, the royal we, the universal we believed that we went to sleep so that your brain could shut down, right? Because we think all day long, right? All we do is think. We got to go to sleep and that's not how it works. We don't go to sleep and our brain shuts off. Quite the opposite. Science now has the ability to map things in the brain in real time and to watch how much glucose it's using in real time and to watch what it's doing. And this has enabled us to learn a lot of things, like we dream in every stage of sleep, alpha, beta, right? All of them. We thought that dreaming took place only in delta stage when we were doing rapid eye movements. Well, that's simply not the case. In fact, Johnny Scoville woke up this morning talking about that. He said he went in and closed his eyes, and the second he did, he was dreaming, and they weren't good ones.
2 hours.
Yeah. This is the reality. So I like to, and I believe that for me, the magic in Dan, Do, Party, Demon, Army. You're just trying to make that difficult. Good to see you, Pro. How are you? Glad that you're here. Man, I could never get that right. There's no chance in hell. But it's got a smiley face on the end of it, which means it's got to be a good thing, right? Good. That's a beautiful thing. Welcome to the boat. So instead of just getting my day into a very easy thing for the night shift to work, and when the night shift comes on, it works through things that you didn't deal with during the day, stuff you shoved in the closet. And it can do magic that you can't do during the day. If your boss chapped you to the point where you'd like to toss him off a balcony, you can't do that in the real world, right? You can't. But in your dream, you can actually twist his head off if that's what needs to happen. In your dream, maybe while you're talking to him, a horse needs to walk through the room, right? We can get outside the box at night. We can do things that we couldn't do during the day, and it helps us cope. You understand? It does amazing things to help us cope. So last night, instead of doing that, I started to journal about my hurt feelings. And I journaled a hell of a lot longer than I wanted to. And I've been bragging. I'm not putting anything in the closet. I'm not. And I've also talked about how if you're not shoving stuff in the closet, then when you journal, you're going to start journaling stuff from your past. You're going to start working through stuff in your past. When you go to sleep, the night shift doesn't have a whole lot of stuff to deal with that you shoved in the closet that day. It's going to start backing up. It's going to start looking for things that you didn't deal with at other times in your life. You understand? So as I started to journal about my feelings being hurt, I didn't just journal about my feelings being hurt last night. I journaled about a lot of times that my feelings were hurt, a lot of times that I haven't journaled about. And if you had asked me prior to journaling, I would have said, of course I journaled about that. Of course I did. But I can tell you without going back through all my journals, because they're in shipping right now, but I can tell you that I didn't journal about this. And the way that I know it is when I journal about something that I've talked about before, it's amazingly obvious. Now, it wasn't the first week I was a journal guy. Maybe not even the first 6 months. Skimble Shanks, good to see you. I believe we have Australia now in the house. Man, we are literally all over the map, or the globe, I should say. But it enabled me to start working through things and other times in my life. Hi, Cliff Ann, when my feelings were hurt. Do you know how hard it is for a 55-year-old guy who's been to prison 3 times to say, my feelings are hurt? To be able to say that to a human being, it's just, I have a costume. I have an outfit. You have one. You have one. You have one. We all do. To some degree, everybody has one. Allegedly, Trouble. Love the name. Hi, glad you're here. It's amazing what happens when you stand naked in front of yourself. Really, it is hard. It is almost impossible, allegedly, Trouble. And the crazy thing is this. I couldn't say to the person that hurt my feelings, hey, you hurt my feelings, but I can come here and share it with hundreds of people, right? 50 live, and I don't know how many will see it, but I can do this in front of a camera. And it's, I guess, another form of journaling of sorts, right? But the importance behind this can't be emphasized enough. The self-help book business is unbelievably large. The number of self-help books that come out constantly. I'm not leaving the shop now. It's freezing. Yeah, naked, too cold too. Caroline says, me standing naked is not a pretty sight. It's funny that you say that, right? Because me standing naked is the ugliest sight you've ever seen in your life. And I don't mean physically. I've worked kind of hard on that. But if I were to stand naked in front of you without this costume on, right? And the costume is, muscles. That's part of the costume. It really is. It's what I want the world to see. And I work out, like my yoga, I work out and do yoga because it is good for my mind. But when I'm doing, push-ups in different sets, I'm doing it to build my body. And I'm doing that. I mean, I can tell myself I'm doing it for health, but I'm not. Because I know, all right, I've studied the crap out of this, wearing a face that she keeps in a jar by the door. Great reference, Lumen. Yeah. Eleanor Rigby, the Beatles, good tune. But it's very different if I'm being honest. Like, I've studied the crap out of who I am, why I am, and what I want to be. And one of the things that I studied first was working out, right? I wanted to make sure that I wasn't wasting my time. And I can tell you today, after doing tons of study, that I'd be better off walking for 26 minutes than I would be doing push-ups and all of those things. Or burpees, God forbid, right? I don't know if you've ever seen a burpee, but it's like, you drop to your face and you do a push-up, and then you pull your knees up and you jump up into the air, put your hands up, and then drop back down and do it. Terrible. Good exercise if you happen to be in a walk-in closet and you can't do anything else. So burpees are really big in prison. Really big, right? Everybody does burpees in prison. Yeah, burpees suck. There's no question. But I know now that when I'm working out and doing certain workouts, I'm doing it because of how I want to look. And there's nothing wrong with that. There isn't. But make no mistake, it's part of the outfit. It's part of the costuming that I'm going to do to go play Tommy Scoville for the world. We all do this to some degree. The awareness that you're doing it is a gift from God, I promise you. And it's a gift that you're going to figure out by writing in that book, that page that stares back at you empty. There's a question you can write. Am I the same person that I show the world? And I'm not. I don't know that anyone is. Sorry, I had to get off for a couple of minutes in order to do my telemed appointments. You know something? It's amazing how convenient that's become. I was doing them in the United States all the time. That's how I did everything. I don't do them down here. Yep, burpees. We have to do them for figure skating and used to have to do them in my ballet classes. It's pretty rugged, isn't it, Skimble Shanks? It's a terrible exercise. But here's the thing. After getting out of prison and studying it, it's not a good exercise for your body. It really isn't. It's a bad exercise for your body. Now, the crazy thing is, even after learning how that damages the body and how it's less productive, I continued to do it. And I continued to do it because I knew that it was really good for that costume. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be in shape. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. But I think it's a pretty important thing if you know why you're doing it. And none of this stuff walks up and goes, how you doing? Tell me. I'm your ego, right? I'm your ego. You and I need to talk. It's not how it works at all. You have to start peeling back layer after layer after layer. Q used to call it peeling the onion, right? And if anyone's ever done that, it's a perfect analogy because they peel, right? In the beginning, it's just like paper that sort of falls off of the outside of an onion. And then it gets a little harder, right? If you cut it a little too deep, you can take way too much off all at once, can't you? You really can. And it's going to make your eyes tear every time you do it. It really is the perfect analogy. That's what we're doing is we're peeling an onion. And it's going to make you cry if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, there's going to be tears. Now, you know my religious beliefs, or at least you know that I believe. And one of my favorite phrases of all time is that tears are the telescope through which men view God. I think that's beautiful. I don't get a lot of growth when I'm laughing. I don't. Now, I prefer laughing. I think everybody does, right? It's just more fun. But it doesn't hook you up with all kinds of growth. It doesn't hook you up with all kinds of epiphanies, okay? You don't get epiphanies while laughing your ass off. You get epiphanies while you're crying. The layers back, the middle is thick and strong enough to grow more healthy layers too. Interesting, Cindy G. See that? I tell you, people, I learn from the crew on a daily basis. And the time is coming where I will have to use the analogy of the onion again. And when I really dive into it, because I'll talk about peeling the onion, but when I talk about it, that's really an excellent part of this, isn't it? It really is. Because once we start to peel this thing down and get to a point where we're getting rid of all the outside of those layers, we are at big time risk of putting a whole new outfit on. That I fell into that. I've been open and honest that I got way off the path. And one of the reasons that I was off the path way before I started acting like an asshat, way before I stopped doing the kind of content that I built this channel on. I got way off of the beaten path way before that. And one of the reasons is that the Captain Tommy Scoville outfit was different than the other outfits that I had been wearing my entire life. And it's an outfit that makes you susceptible to a whole different kind of set of problems, right? We all, to some degree, struggle with ego. And I don't just mean that we're all narcissists and we love ourselves, but our self-image, right? The ego, that's something to some degree we all struggle with. And some of us have an ego that's not developed enough. There are people out there that look at themselves in the mirror and think that they're less than at all times, right? That's an ego problem. I promise you. It's not an overinflated ego problem. It's not like the narcissist kind of ego problem. But the closer we can get the ego, right, to the id or the super id, the better off we are. Because honestly, the ego is your bull crap in yourself. It's what we tell ourselves. You may find yourself living in a shutdown shack. I wear that shirt all of the time. In fact, whenever somebody says, what does that say on your shirt? There you go. Here's the answer to your question the next time someone asks me when I'm wearing my blue shirt. What does that say? Yeah. When the days go by. There you go. We really do this. This is a part of our daily life. What are we showing the world? And the question is why? And self-awareness is such an odd term because it makes it sound like we all have it, right? Self-awareness. You got to be aware of yourself, right? No. The number of people that are going to leave planet Earth without ever having a real handle on who they are is scary. And it's a bit sad, really. But if you're here and you're listening to this, then you probably realize that we did a challenge here on the Love Boat. And the challenge was that all of us are going to journey for 30 days. Right? We're all going to take the time to journal for 30 days without missing a day. I'm speaking of self-pride. It's honestly a different thing than actual pride. Hard to sometimes to discern the difference. You're right, Tommy Bird. You're absolutely right. I think it's fantastic to be proud of yourself. If it's for things that you've achieved, I'm proud as hell to be sober. I really am. And I find it amazing. Like you'll hear someone like Elton John, Elton John has got a list of accomplishments from here to Boston, Massachusetts. He's won Emmys, he's won Tonys, he's won Grammys, everything under the sun, right? He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's done everything. And I saw an interview and a guy said just about what I just said, except he listed awards and Lifetime Achievement Awards and all of these different things, MTV Music Awards, MTV Video Awards, blah, 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 Billboard. And it went on for about 4 minutes. And the guy said, and it was right after his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And he said, at this point, you've done almost everything. Is there anything left? And of all of those, what are you most proud of? And he said, of all of my achievements, I'm most proud of getting sober. I thought, damn. And the number of people who have had incredible things happen in their life who then said the exact same thing, because now I listen for it. And it's amazing how many people that have climbed Mount Everest, figuratively speaking, are more proud of the fact that they were able to set down a bottle of booze, right? Or a syringe or a pipe. And that's because, in comparison, it's a more difficult feat. Our friend Dennis from Boston is 8 years sober today, right? That's an achievement. I'm sorry. If you ran a marathon, that's great. I'm proud of you. Took a lot of willpower. Willpower is not enough to keep you sober, right? You run a marathon, it takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of dedication. But if you stayed sober for 8 years, you had to peel off a lot of that outfit, that costume that you showed the world. You had to spend a lot of time working on self-awareness, and you had to spend a lot of time working through things that you don't want to work through. People talk when they run marathons about hitting the wall. You get to that point where your body says you can't go any farther. I got news for you. The day you say I'm going to stop drinking, or the day you say I'm done shooting heroin, you hit the wall that minute. The wall starts the second that you say I'm done. You don't get some grace period of how easy it is. And people say, you go through the pink cloud. The pink cloud is after the chemicals are out of your body, right? After you've gotten to a place where you no longer have that screaming voice in your head. Yeah, then there's a honeymoon period. But every day during that honeymoon period, you still have to say no. I need to think about ego. I never thought of mine. I don't really care what others think of me, and I'm okay with who I am. Pooh Bear, I think that that's healthy. Very, very healthy. Now, I thought for a long time that I was really self-aware, that my ego's not out of control, right? I'd like to think that I'm not wildly arrogant. And I try to do things to keep myself humble, because doing what I do for a living makes you super susceptible to not being humble. Because people leave comments and say, hey, you're great. Or people leave comments and say, hey, you're a legend. Not a word I like a lot. Johnny Scoville is a legend. I am not. I'm just a YouTuber. Sobriety is freedom. I don't have to worry about how I am getting my booze. Able to go to Memphis and not drink. Showed my AA chit and got free soda and coffee. The best thing is I remember everything. You know something? God help us. Did you hear the last sentence of that? The best thing is I remember everything. Most people who drink and become alcoholics drink to forget everything, Dennis. Right? That's why I put needles in my arm, to forget. And there is something amazing about being able to remember and wanting to be able to remember everything. For real, that was the biggest accomplishment of my sobriety, was wanting to remember the things from my past that I had spent $1 million and 3 decades, I should say millions of dollars, and 3 decades trying to make all that go into the closet and stay there permanently. Heroin was my way of turning the closet door into a bank vault door. Instead of having a closet, I had a safe. And it was like the one from Ocean's 11, right? There were those lights that went up with the green things, and there were, armed guards outside. Opiates made that thing impenetrable. And it served its purpose. I didn't hurt spiritually, emotionally. I didn't hurt. I didn't hurt physically either, but that was far less important. I also didn't really know what my pain level was, ever. I had no idea. How do you know if you're doping yourself every single day? So I would say I have to do this because the pain level is so high that if I don't do it, right? I can't get through life. And I didn't have any perspective on that really, because when I wasn't doing it, I was dope sick. And I knew I couldn't get through life like that. And there were pains there that weren't real. Now, that's something that I used to get so angry at doctors about. They would say, that's psychosomatic pain. And I would go, F you, doc, you haven't felt this. Paula D. Penley, I let my ego hide how I was really feeling most of my life. Pretending to have it together for so long, it led me down a dark path of depression and loneliness. It sure is taking a toll. I believe you said toll. All of a sudden, my computer wanted to move your comment really, really quickly, which means I probably touched something I shouldn't, because I'm not a guy that can run a mouse. I have a touch screen. I don't know why I don't use it more often. It sure is taking a lot. I would imagine it's taking a lot to work through it. Yeah. And then, no matter however you want to look at it, peeling the onion, pulling the closet door off. Yeah, for me, no joke. I had to get through the guards first. I had to get through all of the things that I had put up so that I didn't have to look at why I actually got high. And I would say to every doctor or therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, there's a reason you're doing this stuff. And I would say, yeah, the reason is I like getting high. I liked the way that it made me feel. And then I did it too long and I got addicted. And I believe that. Paula D. Penley says it's taking a lot to get back out. I believe that. However, I also believe you're going to get back out. I believe that everybody in this chat is going to be a different person 30 days from today, myself included. There's never been a period of time in my life, going back to the day that I started journaling, where every 30-day period didn't see me better than the previous 30 days, with the exception of the times that I was in relapse. And I never stuck a needle in my arm. Relapse is a procedure. It is a process. And the act of finally going and calling the dope man or walking into the liquor store and buying the bottle and tipping it back, that is the last of the stage of relapse. That's the final boom, right? But you can be in relapse for 3 years before you do that. I talk about the canaries in the coal mine, right? All of the things along the way that should be yelling, Tommy, you're off course, right? I got really off course. And going back and reading through my journals, it's so obvious how off course I was. You know, it really is. Unfortunately, when I'm off course, I'm not reading my journals. I'm writing in them because it's such a habit at this point that I can't not do it. I literally can't. But if I'm not going back and reading the stuff that I wrote, and I do it about once every 2 weeks, but I managed to go about 5 months without reading the things that I was writing in my journal. And I think that it's that protection that I talk about, right? I haven't done meth in almost 8 years. Allegedly trouble. I love that. Handmade hazard. Congratulations. Kicked breast cancer's arse. What's that? I know. How great is that? I kicked breast cancer's arse. I love that. I really do. I absolutely love that. I also know I'm way behind in the chat, and I apologize, but there's just so much good stuff. I love that. I really do. Handmade hazard. And 8 years without meth, God bless you. That's a hell of a drug to quit, by the way. If you're quietly listening to me and that's your substance of choice, knowing full well, right? Knowing full well, that's going to be a more difficult kick. It's important to know that. Do you understand? It really is. I'm not trying to discourage somebody from quitting meth, but I also don't want to BS anybody. The way that substance works is it releases more brain chemical than any other drug you're going to do, right? Consistently. If you do LSD, you release every brain chemical you got at once, but you can't do it the next day, right? You would have to take so much more because it takes a long time for your body to build all those stores back up so that you can then trip again. So while people do that drug more than they should, nobody's using it as a daily fix. You know, by the time you were 30 days in, you'd be 600 hits a day to feel something. It's the want to be sober. I lack the want. You know something? That's okay. It is. Now, if you start journaling, the first question that I would ask myself is, why do you lack the want? Honestly, it'd be the first. I would work on that. I would journal about that, and I would keep asking myself that, and then rereading my answers over and over again. Because I'll tell you something. If you asked me during my addiction to heroin, I spent a lot of time saying I didn't want to quit, but I always wanted to quit. I did. What I didn't want to do was hurt in the process of that. I lacked the want, because I knew what that meant. I knew the pain that it was going to take for me to get sober. And I don't mean emotionally. I didn't have a clue the pain it was going to take emotionally to get sober. I just knew how bad it was going to hurt physically to get sober. And every time I would try, there was not a month that went by ever that I didn't try to kick heroin. And in the last probably 2 or 3 years that I was an addict, every single day that I got up, I said, this is the day that I quit. And that usually lasted about 7.5 to 8.5 hours. And there was a couple of times that it would make it to day 2. And there was maybe a dozen times over the last few years that I made it to day 3 or 4. And it was crazy, because by day 3 or 4, the real heavy lifting is over. Doesn't mean you're over. Hey, honest is huge. I'm not busting your chops. I promise you, honesty is huge. But figuring out the why is why we journal. Okay? Figuring out the why is the answer to the question, why do you journal? Right? I want to figure out why. I want to figure out why I am the way I am. I want to figure out why I treat people the way that I treat them. I want to find out why I hide things from people, why I lie about things to people. All of those questions are answered in a journal. And if you're doing it right, I promise you that's what's happening. Allegedly Trouble says, I chose to live. Well, it's a mother of a drug to quit, because I heard a doctor, an MD doctor, who also had a PhD and worked exclusively in rehabilitation. And she would come into prisons and do speeches. And she was talking about, she was actually teaching a course that I would go to once a week, but she was talking about a drug each week. And when she talked about methamphetamine, as an example, she said, I'm going to use numbers that are arbitrary. They're not real, but they're examples that make this a lot easier to think about. And she said, so on a scale of 1 to 10, when a doctor comes in and hands you your baby, right? You just had your first baby, and it's a baby girl or a baby boy, and the doctor comes in and hands you that baby. Mother Nature has come up with a way to make sure that you take care of that baby. Because honestly, it's a little thing that is screaming and defecating on itself and is kind of frightening, right? What keeps us from running the hell away from it is that we get such an unbelievable dose of chemicals released at that moment that we instantly bond to that child in a way that you cannot possibly imagine, right? It's really one of the most, intense emotional things that you're ever going to feel. However, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's about an 8. And the first time that you shoot meth, right? The first time that you shoot meth, it's a 10. Now, if you shoot meth and you go have sex with someone, okay, because sex, the first time you have sex with somebody is a 6 or a 7, right? Depending on how much you care about the person or how excited you are about it or whatever. So what if you're having sex with someone you've never had sex with before that you really wanted to have sex with, and the both of you are doing meth? Well, then you jump right off of that scale, and now you're up into the 12s. So science has also figured out that addiction is caused by a malfunctioning reward center of the brain. Your brain chemicals being released when you have that kid is to make you bond permanently for life. However, when the reward center of your brain works right, you put in a hard day's work and your body releases a chemical that makes you feel good, just like getting high, right? To a lesser degree, it's not as noticeable, but you get this really unbelievable sense of well-being. And you go, it feels good to work. It's like working out. Your body releases feel-good chemicals and you go, hey, this whole getting in shape thing works fantastic. I get that from journaling. Didn't happen day 1. You have to reprogram the malfunctioning reward center of your brain, because right now, right, if you're still in the life, then your body is releasing those chemicals at the absolute worst time. For the addict, when the drug dealer hands you the bag of dope, you release enough brain chemicals into the body to say that bag of dope is as important as the kid was that the doctor handed you. You bond to that bag of dope. Amphetamine, almost every day since 2013. I think I can achieve anything just with the bag in my hand. It's a psychological thing. I completely understand, bro. I do. I completely understand. And amphetamines are one of those drugs that come with a whole new bag of crap, right? Because they do make you feel like Superman. You can do more. You can stay up later. You can do all of these things that seem to make you far more effective as a person. And I won't lie to you, it does make you far more effective as a person. That's why in World War II, they were giving it to American soldiers. They were giving it to German soldiers. The kamikaze pilots were so hopped up on meth, it was incredible. Trouble is this. There is a diminishing return on the investment. When you first start taking it, it's incredible. You're hyper-focused. You have more energy. You have more focus. And then it stops delivering after a while. And unfortunately, what it's delivering is the feeling of well-being, but now you're picking your face in the mirror, right? Now you're looking out the peephole. Now you really rely on that dope, right? Yes, it absolutely will feel, when you're in the life, you don't see any of these things. You don't. Your friends do. I remember, calling my dad and saying to him, I'm a drug addict. And my dad was like, of course you are, right? I thought nobody knew. I said, Dad, I'm addicted to drugs. He said, yeah, we all know that. What are you addicted to? The question wasn't whether or not Tommy was a drug addict. The question was, what was the drug? It was painfully obvious to everybody on planet Earth that there was something really wrong with me. Now, not in the beginning. In the beginning, the only people that ever knew there was something wrong were the people who saw me sober. You got me journaling 2 years ago, and I came across those first entries and seeing how far I had come. It was a gift of encouragement to keep going. I love that. That's why we go back and we read. Hey, Chris, good to see you. I used to do a little, but a little wouldn't do it, so the little got more and more. That's right, Barbara. And that song is absolutely about my drug of choice, right? Absolutely about my drug of choice. And you want to hear something incredible? True story. So for probably 7 years, if I was not incarcerated, I woke up in the morning by putting on the album Appetite for Destruction and putting on, I think it's the 9th track, if I'm not mistaken, but I would put on Mr. Brownstone and I would crank it as loud as it would go. And when that first just driving bass track comes in, I had it in the spoon. I was doing the cooking. And before the end of that song, I had whacked the first shot of the day. It's insane what that song will do to me when it comes on the radio. And for years, right after I got sober, I would go change the station or turn it off instantly. Because if not, my palms would start to sweat. I'd start itching my arms. I would start doing all of these things that made me look like a really disturbed individual. I used to make lists of things that triggered me, trigger lists. I've talked about these before. Things that you should probably avoid, things that guaranteed are going to trigger you to want to do dope. And the first one I wrote on the list was Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Every song on that album is about heroin. And I knew it. It was the celebration album. It was what I did when I was doing heroin. Now that song can come on and it doesn't make me want to do heroin at all. I don't like the song anymore. I really don't. I can't groove to it the way that I used to. But it doesn't make me want to use. It makes me feel dirty, right? Like saying grape. The meth installs an autoimmune disease as well that's not discussed or not disclosed. You know something? There's a lot of things that every drug has something like that, right? So I was addicted to the morphine molecule for so many years that my MU receptor is never going to be right. My MU receptors in the body are never going to be like somebody else's. That's just how it goes. And meth does a lot of really tough things to the body and mind, a bunch. I have seen horror stories on meth like I've not seen on other drugs, for real. I've told the story many, many times, but one of the people that ratted on me on my first federal case was a young woman. And the only reason she did was because she had been arrested. She actually didn't know anything about what I did. She didn't know I was a bank robber. She didn't know any of that. But she knew I had been arrested. And when they asked her, do you know anything about this guy? She had just been picked up for possession. And she would have said anything if it meant she could get out a little earlier because she was going to be dope sick. So she ratted on me, which is almost humorous because she tried to rat on me is a better way to put it. It's not like the testimony or anything ever got anywhere, but there was a bunch of people, every one of them that got arrested tried to come up with a story so that they could get out a little quicker. But she was a model that did the whole Miss Hawaiian Tropic stuff, a bikini model. got a bunch of pictures taken of her and went around the country. And it was a very big deal for her. She worked out. She got very, very into it. She was a lovely woman to look at. And she was a dental hygienist. And we were not intimate or anything like that. She was just a junkie that I knew. And when I got out of prison the last time, I saw her at a 7-Eleven. And she came to the car and tried to sell herself. No joke. And she had purple on both sides of her cheeks that looked like the darkest purple you've ever seen. If it was any darker, it would have looked like coffee. And at first, it almost looked like somebody just did a horrible makeup job. And as she got closer, I realized that that's not what I was looking at. And as she got closer, she had been digging on her face like there was a bag of meth on the inside of it. With your bitch slap rapping and your cocaine tongue. Yes. That would have been the next album, right? That was the Use Your Illusion, I believe was the name of that album. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron was my journal of choice. Still is. Love your musical info, Tommy. Well, thank you. Yeah, I was a Guns N' Roses fan. Big time Guns N' Roses fan. And you know something? It's weird to look back and look at your life when you're naked and you're standing in your journal and there's nobody else around. Because I will never know why Guns N' Roses did to me what it did. Did I love the music that much, or was it just so symbolic because all the stuff they were talking about, right? It was such a drug band. I'm sorry, it really was. They ended up in court because they were sued by one of the band members for kicking them out of the band for refusing to shoot heroin. Logical reason to kick somebody out of a rock band, right? You can see Axl Rose sitting on the stand in a suit explaining how Mr. Brownstone could be about anything. It could be about Diet Coke. I'm not joking. That's a quote. Nobody thinks that was about Diet Coke, right? The music is medicine. Frequency can heal or kill. That's why most music is at 440 hertz, not natural 432 hertz. Chris, I read a whole book about that. And I believe it wholeheartedly. I also saw, I try to get weird on you, but I saw one of the strangest interviews ever where there was this old rocker who was more of a session musician, sat in on a bunch of stuff. And he was sitting with an up and coming artist, and they were talking to about 4 people on this panel, but these 2 had been sort of shooting back and forth and talking to each other. And the guy said, the studio musician said to the up and coming guy, hey, do they still take the master tracks? You know, the original pressing of the tracks, do they still take that into that little back room and do that whole ceremony thing with the dark robes? I swear to you. And I was waiting for the guy to laugh. And the youngster looked around like, are we allowed to talk about this shit in public? I mean, that was the look. Now, I don't know. I've read a couple of books on that too, that there's a whole lot of demonic crap that happens with music. There really is. There are certain, and you probably know more about this than I do, Chris, but there are certain, there's a drum that doesn't really get used in other kinds of music that is very, very unique and used constantly. Is it the 808 drum? I can't remember. I remember reading about it, but it wasn't a rehab book. So I didn't read it twice. I didn't try to memorize it, anything like that. But I think it might be called an 808 drum. But it's used differently today than it ever has been. And it's used anyway. Look at me, squirreling off. That's why my cat's named Squirrel. Myself sheds tears to certain songs, and I believe the angel that was around the writer visits me. You know what? There are songs absolutely that every single time I hear absolutely tear me up. I saw the Eagles when they did the Hell Freezes Over tour. The day that I married my first wife on our honeymoon, we actually made a list of all the bands we would like to see in concert. And we even wrote down bands that are gone. Like, what was your dream list of concerts you wanted to see? And one of the reasons I did it is because I had a friend that ran a concert security company. Like the guys that work security at backstage and the guys that are, checking tickets to see where people sit. He got all of those employees. So I could get in to see anything I wanted. If I just gave him heads up, I could be front row center just wearing a shirt that said security on it, not doing a thing except watching the concert. So my wife was filling out her list. I was filling out mine, and I wrote the Eagles on there. And I put it on the list of bands that weren't touring and that were gone. And she said, well, they could get back together. And I said, when Hell Freezes Over. And it wasn't like, it was how they answered every time the question when are you guys going to get back together? Henley would say, when hell freezes over. And I was at a job. I had a job, believe it or not. I had a job. And the job that I had at the time, I was soldering things for a company that made robotic devices, linear robots, things that just slid back and forth, right? And my wife called me and said, "You're not going to believe who is going on tour." And I said, "Who?" And she said, "The Eagles." "What do you think the name of the tour is?" I said, "The Hell Freezes Over Tour." And she's like, "You already heard?" I go, "No, but if it were me, that's what I would have called it." Since every time they asked him, he answered, "Yeah, when hell freezes over." What he should have said was, "When the money got big enough." Sorry. And that's another fascinating band. My favorite song would have to be "Who Wants to Live Forever" by Queen. You know what? Queen's another one of those bands that they didn't do anything I didn't love. Yeah, it was his birthday. That concert, I got the tickets for him on his birthday. Sweet Caroline. Bum, bum, bum. That was absolutely one of the greatest shows ever. Now, I wish I had seen it sober.
We weren't sober?
No, we weren't sober. I got to see the Eagles in 2008. Felt lucky. You were lucky. You absolutely were lucky. We saw them in the 90s in Houston, Texas. The first time I saw them, because I saw that tour in about 4 different states. I followed it sort of because my friend could get me tickets in the next city, like a reciprocal agreement thing with whoever was running the concert security. So the first one was so good that I went and saw it in a couple of other states. But the first time I saw it was in Houston, and we were hopped up. Unfortunately, we did a lot of dope that day. I believe ecstasy was the drug that we were doing the most of. Yeah, but I honestly, if I could do it all over again, I would have liked to have seen that sober. That would have been a good one. But it was a hell of a show, I promise you. And it was on his birthday. I called him and said, "What are you doing on July 6th?" He said, and he had a plan. He's like, "Yeah, some friends of mine are getting together." I'm like, "No, you're not. I got you an airline ticket, and I got you a front row center to go see the Hell Freezes Over tour." Hell of a concert. So now that I've squirreled off into the music realm for a minute, the question on my thumbnail was, what are you hiding from? I know what I'm hiding from. I saw Bowie. I saw David Bowie. But that's another concert I wish I saw sober. I saw David Bowie so wasted. There's like 3 musicians that I saw so messed up that I don't remember a whole lot of anything. That one happened to be a benzodiazepine haze, a really heavy drug, flunitrazepam. It's no longer around. But boy, oh boy, I remember so little of it that if you had woke me the next morning and said, "What'd you do last night?" I wouldn't have been able to tell you I was at a concert, which was really a bummer. But what are you hiding from? You're not going to find out any other way. I promise you, any other way than journaling. And you know something, folks? I'm not trying to sell you anything. There's nothing attached to this where next week I've got this package that for $300, I'm telling you, right? Just one addict to another. And if you say, "Well, I'm not addicted to anything," trust me, you are. Trust me, you are. It might not be drugs. It might be a habit, right? People can become addicted to lying. And I don't mean, "Hey, let me tell you about this time I beat up 30 dudes," like these alpha male fakes online. I'm talking about the kind of lies that are just small omissions or small falsehoods, usually one word. "No, I'm not." Or "Yes, yep, absolutely. Did you take care of that?" "Yes, I did." Yeah. Just those small little lies that will smooth out life, that will keep you from having to deal with something you didn't want to deal with. Do you understand what I'm saying? You will find out a lot about yourself journaling. A lot of stuff about yourself that nothing else on earth is going to deliver to you. Now, I got an email from somebody that said, the journal will save me a fortune in therapy. You're not getting it. The journal will allow therapy to do things for you that will absolutely change your life. Dennis from Boston, thank you, my brother. I am so glad and I am honored that you chose to spend the morning of your 8th year of sobriety here on the Love Boat. I don't think I can explain to you how much that means to me. And I will tell you something, and this is absolutely from the bottom of my heart. There's not a day that goes by that I don't pray for a particular prayer that you asked me to pray about. There's not a day that goes by that I don't pray that prayer. And hope things are going well in every aspect of your life. But congratulations on 8 years, my brother. That's epic. That's epic. You know, not for nothing, but that's the winning, right? Winning. For real, that's winning. That's what winning is. That's what it looks like. It looks like an 8-year anniversary of your sobriety. It looks a hell of a lot like winning. Allegedly, the 808 bass frequency stimulates emotional arousal due to its unique sonic characteristic and can trigger aggressive behavior. It has a historical association with provocative content. Well, there you go. I knew I had read something about it. Thank you very much, Beyond Ballet. I really do appreciate that. Yeah, I knew I had read something about that. So when you're journaling and you're staring at a blank page, because it happens, right? And we've been going over for the last 4 days, what do we do when we're staring at the blank page? And you can peel the onion. You can start asking you questions from the past, right? Who was the first person I ever fell in love with? When was the first time I was ever embarrassed? What was the name of my first through 7th grade teacher or my first through high school teachers? And what can I remember about it? Peeling the onion. You can also stare at a blank page and write down the things that you're grateful for. And if you go, well, I don't have a lot to be grateful for, then you're still in asshat mode, and that's okay, right? There's a lot you got to be grateful for. Tell you what, if that doesn't work, write down all of the crappy things that could have happened to you in the last year, and you'll see all of the things that you should be grateful for. Did you get in a car wreck that destroyed your body? No, maybe you should be grateful that you've been safe in spite of the chemicals that you do. You follow me? Gratitude journaling is a great way to get an empty page to go away. But as you start to get into this a little more and you're staring at a blank page, start to write down what you're hiding from. Start to write down what costumes you're putting on. What do I do to keep people from seeing me naked? Right? Spiritually naked. What do I do to protect the image of Tommy? Or what do you do to protect the image of you? Because most of us are terrified that the world is going to see who we really are. And it's not your fault, by the way. It's not. Even if you had great parents, it's not your fault. Because we live in a place that nothing else has ever been like. There's nobody that came before us that has the pressures of the internet, right? And your neighbors doing all kinds of crazy things and putting it all up. Here, look at me. Here's me on vacation, right? In the Bahamas. Here's me with the new Tesla I just bought. I got the plaid version. Here's us in the new house we just bought. Nobody puts up, here's the police in the front yard. My son got arrested for a DWI last night. They had to bring him home. They only put that out to the world, right? My brother likes to say comparison is the thief of joy. And we live in a society that forces us to compare ourselves to other people. That's never happened before. Oh, man, Dennis, I love you. You sound like an unbreakable confidence, building self-help, achieve anything you want with this trick course webinar, award-winning accreditation. Yeah, right, that's me. Except I don't have anything to sell you, except hope. And you know what? It's cheap. It really is. Hope's cheap. And there's not much like it on planet Earth. It's pretty good stuff. Thank you for being here, Tommy. This channel has helped me. That's why I couldn't think of any other place to go and maybe help someone if I can. Wow, you know something, man? If you can, if he can do this, you can do this. That's been my motto, honestly. If I can do this, anybody can do this, right? If I can get off heroin, I promise you can get off what you're on. And take a good hard look, because I love the fact that our friend was honest enough to say today that I lack the want. It's wanting to get sober that I lack. Get that journal thing I was talking about. Open it up and make me a good long list of all the reasons you don't want to get sober. Honestly, give that a try. Try to write down all the reasons you don't want to be clean and sober. Sometimes it's really interesting to give honesty a try. And I don't mean with other people, for real. But being honest with yourself, it was way easier for me to be honest with all of the people in my life than it was to be honest with me. And don't get it effed up. I lied to everybody for almost my entire life. But I was able to start being honest with the world way before I was able to start being honest with me.
It's always like that.
It is always like that, says the smarter of the two brothers, the big brother. All right. All right, people. Go out there and attack today. And whatever you do, don't skip journaling. For real. I promise I'm not going to ask you for $25 a month to get you to do it. But don't skip journaling. Because if you want to change yourself, if you want to be a better version of yourself, then you're going to have to take off the costume. And you're going to have to stop hiding. And you're going to have to stand naked in front of a mirror that maybe you're the only one that will ever see. Right? And write it down. And then read it back. It's like, when I write down what I want, why I want it, what I'm willing to do to get it. Do you know how many times I write something down, and then when I write why I want it, I go, oh, that's stupid, right? It would be a lot of fun to drive a Ferrari. But if you say you want a Ferrari, what do you write down for the reason you want it? Because if you write down anything other than, I want people to see me in a Ferrari, right? It'll really rub it in the nose of that girl that didn't date me in high school. It'll really rub it in the nose of the guy that said I would never be a success. It's like yelling to the world, check out how much cash I got. Couldn't buy this if I wasn't winning. That's not a good reason to buy anything. However, I promise that I can sell myself on all of the reasons it would be a good investment if I don't journal. I'd be in there going, you know what, I earned this thing. And the performance of this vehicle is so much better than anything else. And this is an inspiration, blah, blah, blah. Truth is tough. Truth with yourself is absolutely priceless, right? Priceless. Between now and the next time I see you, which will be tonight at 7:05 on the Pacific coast of the United States of America, that time zone, right? Between now and then, put a little love in your heart. Kindness beats the crap out of everything else. I promise. I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Bye-bye.